Jamie thought it was a scratch at first, the little spidery mark at the base of his ribcage. It wasn't until it started spreading that he realized it was scar tissue, twisted and ropey, stretching across his belly, and it wasn't until the next day that he realized it was spelling words. You have been warned. You have been warned. You have been warned.
PseudoPod, episode 827 for September 9th, 2022. She Works in the Office Where They Died, by Alex T. Singer. I'm Alex, co-editor of PseudoPod, your host this week. 2 days from now, we pause to consider the events of that day in 2001. This week's author, Alex T. Singer, thought often about that day while commuting to the WeWork shared office space built on the corpse of the World Trade Center. She Works in the Office Where They Died is a PseudoPod original. Born in NYC, Alex T. Singer now lives along Long Island Sound with her wife, 2 cats, and too many SFF novels to count, which is the exact right number. She's the author of indie titles Minotaur, Song of the Bull Rider, and the graphic novella Small Town Witch. Her short stories have appeared in Cross Genres magazine, Utopia Science Fiction, and Apparition Lit. For more, visit her website at littlefoolery.com. Our narrator this week is the perennial favorite, Danny Daly. Danny is a jack of many trades, master of none. But seeing as she loves the rogue life, that's okay with her. You can hear stories she's narrated on all 4 Escape Artist podcasts, Starship Sofa, Glittership, and Asimov Science Fiction podcast, or you can buy the audiobook she's narrated at audible.com under the name Danielle Daly. And you can contact her on Twitter or at danielledailyreads.com if you'd like her to read for you. Audio production for this episode is Marty Perrette. As always, links are in the show notes. Now, grab your coffee, use it as a prop to avoid eye contact, check the time, and put a little more hustle in your step. Remember, early is on time, and on time is late. Your next appointment is a true story, and they don't like to be kept waiting. We promise.
She Works in the Office Where They Died, by Alex T. Singer. Read by Danny Daly. Desra works in an office where 1,000 people died. Well, 1,082. People round down. No one's told the ones who died. "Good morning," says Desra, to Brenda, the security guard who mans the bag check. "Morning," says Brenda, with a tired nod. Caroline, the receptionist, is hunched behind Brenda. She's looking at someone, but it's not Desra, as her mouth moves silently. There hasn't been a proper receptionist working there since the building opened. No one's told Caroline. She was the first confirmed casualty. Desra smiles and nods anyway. Brenda searches her bag. Sometimes before lunch, Desra finds a man in the elevator, waiting for someone to pick his floor. He can't do it himself. His hands pass right through the buttons, but he tries again and again. Desra hits it on her way down. It opens, and he drifts out. A woman follows her through automatic doors on her way back. She doesn't activate the motion sensor. A pair of admins, Yasmin and Brent, wait for packages in the mailroom. They've been waiting for years. The clerk looks straight through them. When Desra first started, she asked about it. She got a lot of blank looks. Most of the office shrugs off the little weirdnesses, like they shrug off Steve's moods. The chairs that are moved a little further out than they expected. The brief cold patch, as Casualty 351 glares at the printer. She's not sure if they don't see or if they just don't want to think about it. Everyone's got deadlines to meet. It happened a little over 20 years ago. Who has time for that kind of thing anymore? It was all over the news. They all saw the way the earth opened up. They all saw the block go down. A row of buildings proud and tall like teeth, all at once sank down and crumbled, like a sandcastle. Not at all like concrete structures, with thousands of people still alive inside. One building fell into another, and they all went down. The whole block. Desra was 12 at the time. She saw the last building collapse live from the TV in the school library. It turned into a column of smoke. I just saw, 100 people die, she thought. She never did finish the book she'd started. Now she works where 100 people died. And about 900 more. And 82 extra. But no one ever counts the last 82. The last 82 don't know that. When Desra sees some of them chatting around the espresso machine, they don't seem to know they've been counted at all. "Excuse me," she says to them, as she nudges a latte out of the machine. It took one of the perfectly living communication managers frowning at her to realize the guy with the red beard in front of her probably won't ever excuse her. She steps around him anyway, back bumping the counter. She doesn't like walking through them. In an hour or two, his eyes are going to go wide, and he'll vanish through the floor. Desra tries not to look. After the buildings fell, the city argued over what to do about it. The first set of officials wanted a memorial. The next set wanted a park. The next wanted revenge for whoever they felt had done it. All of them argued so long that their voters started to forget, so they built a new row of office buildings, filled with cheap offices for rent, 15 to 20 per floor. The building is stubbier, blander, and less likely to collapse. They stuck a plaque in the sidewalk at the corner. School kids make crayon rubbings of it on Wednesdays, but otherwise, you'd never guess it happened at all. Desra knows it happened. She knows every time she goes back to her desk. The new complex is less expensive than the ones that fell. In order to save cost and promote openness, every wall in the office is made of glass. Startups rent their 20 by 20s, hoping one day they can graduate to the 20 by 25 in the next floor up. They apply their logos as stick-on decals and peel them off when they leave. The remnants of 2 of these decals hover over the door to the open office where Desra works. Through the right wall, she can see the logo for the mail-order winery and a sports supplier. Everyone stoops shoulder to shoulder on desks that look more like craft tables. Everyone can see every one of those heads all the way down the hall. Desra tries not to think about what it would be like if every single one of the glass walls shattered at once. Every morning, she takes her coffee, sits down at her desk, and watches people pass the glass door to their own glass rooms. It's gotten easier to tell who's alive and who's dead. Desra found their faces on old web pages and online articles. Desra feels the cold air as Tommy walks through one of the glass walls on his way to his morning meeting. The ghosts aren't really the issue. Desra's a new hire, and she has bigger things to worry about. Steve checks in at 10 a.m. Steve's the co-founder of the merchandise startup. If it's a good day, he's got coffee and donuts and says good morning. If it's a bad day, he's got his cell phone and asks Desra why she didn't call the client yesterday. "I messaged you about it," says Steve. The message came in at 2 a.m. "Sorry," she says. She's learned the hard way not to point out stuff like time zones. "I left a message this morning." "Should have left one last night," says Steve, with a brittle smile. He's not a bad guy when he's not stressed. "Have you called them back yet? Des, we really need to get better about this." Behind him, Joe Borghese, who was caught in the collapse, is leaning to look out the window. Steve notices Desra's eyes drifting. "And I need you to be present, okay?" He goes back to his phone. He promises to buy the office lunch. Lily walks in next. Lily's a little nicer. Lily's the other co-founder. She wears 3 sets of heels a day and sparkles at the shareholders. She squeezes Desra's arm as she says, in her sweetest voice, "Hey girl, can I hop on the computer for a sec? Just a sec." And Desra slides over the next stool. Most of the in-house management systems are proprietary and don't run on her personal laptop. A problem the contracted tech support keeps promising will be fixed every 2 weeks. Desra's access is limited to the one desktop on one of the 2 workbenches stretched wall to wall. Lily checks her emails and Skypes with potential clients and college friends. Desra spends the next 2 hours next to the dearly departed Robbie Gray, a CPA for a law firm that went down with the old building. Someone who probably doesn't exist anymore is yelling at him through his phone. He stares sullenly at his empty bench. "I feel you," she says to him. But Robbie has never heard her, and she doubts he hears her now. She pulls up her own phone to fit in what work she can until Lily goes to brunch with more prospective clients. Desra has checklists. Desra is very good at checklists. She checks the copy she's made of the office Excel sheets. She checks her copy of the office calendar, the one she can actually access. The last one was locked to the person who used to have her job, and they never figured out how to get her in. Desra checks the time, because she knows late morning is when the ghosts start really moving. Steve blows in 2 hours later like a changing of the guard. Lily glows happily when she returns. Steve often simmers with barely contained irritation. He hangs over Desra's shoulder to make sure she's got the web portal open. "Why did it take you so long to update the site?" Desra's not the webmaster. She's not actually sure who that actually is. Lily needed the computer. "Okay, but that had to be done. Why wasn't it done?" "I could do it if I had my own computer." Steve scowls. "We'll talk about it." He leaves to take another call. Desra stares blankly at Robbie. Robbie has his head on his desk, hands over his head, shielding himself from a coming impact. "It's okay. It's over," says Desra, smiling weakly. The dead man doesn't smile back. Desra's a project manager. Her job is to manage workflow. There's a lot of flow to be managed, especially in a building where not everyone is strictly alive. There's even more than she expects, because she's also managing IT requests, client calls, manufacturing, distribution, tax prep, and now the web page. She codes email blasts. She schedules promotional events. She writes copy when no one else will, and rewrites it when Steve inevitably complains about it where he's sure she can overhear him. She is bright and friendly, even after accidentally stepping through Joe Borghese one morning. "Are you cold, hon?" asks Lily, for once waiting for her in the office. "I can get a space heater in here." Joe Borghese is gazing worriedly out the window again. Robbie is having a quiet mental breakdown over calls in the corner. "I'm good. Did Steve say anything to you about getting another computer?" "We'll talk about it," promises Lily, who's currently on the one in the office. "But in the meantime, I've got something really important." She hands Desra a package. It's got ribbons on it and bright wrapping paper. It's addressed to someone with the same last name as Lily. There's a happy birthday sticker on the front. "If you could just run this down to the drop box around the corner," bubbles Lily. "It'll be a great way to test our mailing systems. Oh, and can you check the office mail on your way back? Oh, and I printed some copies in the lab. Thank you so much. You're such a rock star." Desra has a degree in business administration, but never mind all that. Desra hits the button for the man in the elevator. Desra says hi to Brenda, who is alive and on shift, and Caroline, who is not alive, but still on shift. It's a cold morning, like it was the day everyone died. Desra measures the shadow of the building as it stretches out over the pavement. Is it longer than it should be? Desra can't tell. She sends off Lily's extremely important birthday gift. On her way back, she looks up and spots the silhouette of someone standing on the top floor of the building. They're staggering along the railing, holding hands, looking down, gauging something. Desra swallows and looks away. She stares at her feet as she comes back through the glass doors to the glass building made of glass walls. It's late morning. This was around when the building started to shudder and crumble. Desra's office is fine, but the ghosts aren't. Caroline's smiling face jitters in and out of focus behind Brenda. The man in the elevator is plastered against the far wall. Desra hits his floor anyway, for all it matters. The doors open on nothing. "You can go if you want," says Desra. He just slowly drops his head into his hands. Ghosts are rushing through the halls when Desra checks the mailroom. It's easy to tell them apart from the living this time of day. The living are just walking. A woman sprawls across the floor. Brent's huddled under the desk. In the mailroom, Yasmin staggers with her hand along the wall, coughing viciously. The last Desra sees of her is her long black ponytail, swallowed by the mailboxes. The office common is lit in neon purple lights. This has nothing to do with the dead and everything to do with building management. They wanted to look modern. They wanted to be fun. It's made to look like a bar, with stale beer on tap. Steve's sitting on one of the stools. He stands up when Desra walks in. A club remix of some 20-year-old pop song plays softly over the loudspeaker. Steve smiles when she comes in, which is a good sign. He offers her one of the designer cookies from the specialty bakery on the second floor, which is an even better sign. Then he asks, still smiling, "Where have you been?" That's when Desra notices he's been tapping his hand on the bar the whole time. She swallows, accepting the cookie and the tactical error. Lily wanted me to. Forget what Lily wanted you to do. I need you here. Desra holds up the mail and the printouts. Steve rolls his eyes, but he has the grace not to say out loud how pointless he considers the gesture. I think it's time we did your 6-month review. He conducts the review then and there, in the common area, with everyone from the other offices walking in and out, while the ghosts crawl across the floor to avoid a memory of smoke. The list of complaints range from, doesn't answer messages fast enough, to, are you wearing perfume? Because if so, stop. No one likes it. Joe Borghese crawls through one of Desra's feet. She jumps. And you need to be more focused, says Steve, the end of a long list of complaints. I just want you to be better. Do you think you can be better? I'll do my best. You need to do better than that. Okay, but you see them, right? Desra blurts out, pointing. Steve pauses. He follows her finger. He looks straight at Joe Borghese, who's trying to crawl for the doors. The neon lights cut straight through him. You mean all the dead people? He asks, sounding like he does on his good days. That's what this is about? Desra lets her arm drop and nods. She swallows a sharp sob of relief. Steve sits back down. I guess they are kind of a distraction, Steve admits. A little, says Desra in a clipped voice. Then Steve sticks out his foot, straight through Joe Borghese's head. Joe Borghese doesn't react. He's too busy shielding himself against the rubble that must have fallen in the middle of the old floor. See? Says Steve, wiggling his foot around. They can't do anything. I know it's a little weird, but you can just ignore them. It's what everyone else does. Desra looks around. Everyone else who's not a running, crying, praying ghost is going about their day. They're carrying coffee, or they're eating lunch, or grabbing napkins. Not a single one of them is looking at a single one of the ghosts. Just like that? Just like that, says Steve, with an ease more chilling than the ghost under his foot. Des, it's fine. They've been dead for 30 years. 22, says Desra, faintly. I don't care. Steve whips out his phone and walks away. I get it. It takes some getting used to. Just don't use them as an excuse next time, okay? Lily's waiting in the office, with a big, pitying smile. Tough meeting? She asks, like most of the floor hadn't heard. Robbie's holding his face and hyperventilating. Desra can't help but notice Lily's shoved her chair a little to the side to avoid him. I should check those client sheets. But Lily's sitting at the computer and shows no sign of removing herself. Thanks for doing that, she says. It's far past the point Desra can bring herself to smile. I just want you to know, I'm totally here for you, whatever you need. Another work computer, maybe? We'll talk about it, says Lily. Desra goes to the restroom, sticks her knuckles in her mouth, and screams into it. No one will hear her. The club remix plays at top volume. She's pretty sure this room used to be a stairwell in the old building plan, because sometimes she can just hear phantom feet rattling the floor outside the stall, almost in counterpoint to the thumping beat, trying to outrun the inevitable crush. Desra can just about smell fire. Sometimes, Desra can smell burning rubber, and plastic, and hair. She wishes she didn't know that last one was hair. Desra counts her breaths. Lists, she thinks. Lists. She's good at those. She thought she was good at those. She'll make a new Excel sheet. She'll start bringing her own laptop. She'll get a stronger prescription on her anti-anxiety meds. She'll petition for a new client management system. She'll stop thinking about the shadows on the roof. Someone knocks on the bathroom stall. "Are you still in there?" Desra looks up. She hadn't heard the door open. It's not one of her coworkers. "I'll be out in a sec." "Don't worry about it." Then, after a second, "Whatever they're paying you, it isn't enough." "I'm fine." "It's okay to call out tomorrow." "I'm fine," hiccups Desra. Pressure on the door, like someone's leaning on it. "You should call out tomorrow." "What?" "Just do it." Desra opens the stall just in time to see the back of a woman's long ponytail vanish through the exit door. "I have to go," announces Desra when she gets back to the office. Lily's still at the computer. "Oh no, Des! We still need you to—" "I have to go," repeats Desra. She picks up her bag and leaves. A dark shape streaks by the window as she goes, in a heavy, downward trajectory. She doesn't stop to look. She's seen it before. She enters the lobby shoulder to shoulder with the fleeing ghosts and lawyers on their way to an afternoon smoke break. She notices Brenda glances back over her shoulder, sighs, shakes her head, and gets back to work. Caroline's not visible anymore, but the black stain behind the security desk spreads out across the floor. A few of the lawyers discreetly step over it. They know. They all know. They just don't want to think about it. They have work to do, after all. Desra calls out the next morning. She rolls over and sleeps in. For the first time in months, she doesn't dream about spreadsheets or breaking glass. She wakes up at noon the next day, and for once her heart isn't trying to fly out of her chest. She checks her phone. She's got 30 text messages. This isn't a surprise. The surprise is that the last one from Steve was at 10 a.m. It says, "Answer me, now." The next one's from her sister. "Hello?" The one after that's from a friend she hasn't had the chance to talk to in 5 months. "Just saw. You okay?" Then her mother. "Sweetie, can you call me?" Then her mother again. "Desra, are you okay? Please text us." Desra calls Lily, but her voicemail's full. Which is around the time Desra decides maybe she should get online. Her inbox is full of emails from the office building management. They say things like, "Fire alarm protocol," and "Lockdown in effect." A quick check on the news sites shows Desra a bunch of aerials of the building itself. The studio chat site is quiet. No one answers. No one's signed on since morning. By 5 p.m., the news feeds have updated. It turns out, Robbie Gray wasn't a CPA for the law firm that had gone under when the building fell. It turns out, Robbie was a CPA for the exact same startup as Desra. He'd been very much alive and very much tired of people not noticing that. He'd come in that morning to express that opinion in a manner which required police barricades and active shooter warnings. His photo hangs over the left shoulder of the reporters as she explains all this. His professional headshot looks as sallow and baggy-eyed as he did the last time Desra saw him, holding his head and shaking. Just behind the reporter, Desra spots a young woman with a black ponytail duck under the police tape. The woman pauses, blinking, as though she were seeing the sun for the first time in ages. Then she slips through the barricades like a shadow at dusk, swallowed up like a shadow at dusk. Desra comes in to drop off her keys to the office 4 weeks later. Caroline's sitting behind the newly installed metal detectors. The man is frowning in the elevator. Steve is pacing in the common area, texting. He doesn't look up when Desra walks past him. The glass walls are boarded up. She can't see down the hall anymore. "Are you sure you can't stay a little longer?" asks Lily. Lily wears a bit more foundation than usual to hide her own exhaustion, but fashionable even in the clothes she wears to cope. A black pencil dress with the light gray brocade over the sleeves and hem. She has sharp red shoes to offset. Tasteful, though. Red like wine, not blood. They've obviously replaced the floorboards. "You are a real rock star," Lily continues. "Did I ever tell you that?" "You might have mentioned." "Sure you can't stay?" Lily needed someone to show her how to use the spreadsheets. She'd never bothered to learn how. Desra notices an owl-eyed new hire, her approximate age, sitting in the stool in the corner, where Robbie used to hold his head. There's still only one computer on the workbench. Lily's perched in front of it, cheerfully typing into the chat, even as she tries to look sad. No. Desra slides her keycard across the workbench and walks out, careful to move around Joe Borghese as she goes. Steve steps into her path. "Hi, Steve," says Desra. She braces for either a blowout or some forced cheer, but when Steve frowns, it's slightly to her left as his mouth moves silently. "Bye, Steve," says Desra, exhaling for what felt like the first time in months. She walks through him. It's cold, but only for a moment. It's not like he can do anything anymore. It's an office where 1,000 people died. Well, it's 1,084 now. But after the first 1,000, you really do start to lose count.
During the September 11th, 2001 attacks, 2,977 people were killed. 19 hijackers committed murder-suicide, and more than 6,000 others were injured. Of the 2,977 fatal victims, 2,753 were killed in the World Trade Center and the surrounding area, 184 at the Pentagon, and 40 in Pennsylvania. This tragedy changed our world. As memory fades with 20 years of distance, the impact of the event is diluted. There's an entire generation that has always lived in a post-9/11 world. Even as memory fuzzes at the edges, its impact has fully integrated itself into our life. While those who had been wearing sandwich boards decrying the doomsday for the airline industry have been proven fundamentally wrong, they also got a lot right. Personally, the distance I will drive to avoid flying has gotten a lot longer. We still have to take off our shoes at the airport for the one failed shoe bomber. We get to enjoy full body scans for the failed underwear bomber. My stack of books gets pulled aside for chemical tests every single time. I'm gonna skip the easy joke about the government being afraid of people who read. Instead, to you, my fellow readers, I'll point out that the machines have density problems with bricks of paper, so be mindful, it's gonna take a minute. Don't forget to take your liquids of 3.4 ounces or less out of your carry-on to be scanned, and only 1 quart-sized bag per person. The tragedy of 9/11 brought us into a new era of security theater, The Transportation Security Administration has done its job to create enough hassle to make everyone feel safe. Our legislators told us that you can't professionalize unless you federalize. Yet a 2015 report from the TSA's Inspector General reported that 95% of the time, TSA officers failed to detect weapons, explosives, and other prohibited items that undercover agents smuggled through various airport security checkpoints. I think every member of Congress should be required to fly Spirit everywhere. She Works in the Office Where They Died is not just about 9/11 and how it haunts us still, but cold corporate horror. I have been right with Alex T. Singer and Desra, smiling through the shit sandwich of insufficient resources while bosses encourage you to produce more while making mouth noises about work-life balance. They make a big production of health and wellness theater while you get to build the sets and costumes. The producer lets you know that you never quite hit your marks right. The set could use another coat of paint in a different color. That seam is starting to ravel in the costume and it needs to be mended. It would be great that since you're already sewing, why not just redo it with a different cloth and style? Let me know if you need the phone number of the Employee Assistance Program. They are here to listen to you. We provide someone who will listen to you because we care. Like the somewhat hopeful ending of this tale, some great things have also happened since then. The horror genre has made a comeback from the slumps caused largely by serial killers becoming mainstream and the excess of the paperback boom. PseudoPod, at least on this plane of existence, has always existed in a post-9/11 world. Now we're able to download episodes in seconds directly to our pocket computers, which pump sound right into your earbuds. Or to your car stereo without needing to burn a CD or use one of the many hack technologies to get your Zune and automobile to play nice with each other. In the past 20 years, other things have disappeared entirely. No one remembers America's mayor. He has been replaced with a snake oil shyster selling Donnie's superior stolen election elixir while hair dye trickles down his temple. He is so effective a pettifogger that he can get tricked on camera by Borat. Bless his heart. In the past 20 years, 3,000 victims have become ghosts. I listened to our vice president give a speech where she directly correlated the December 7th attack on Pearl Harbor and September 11th to the January 6th riot. In my generation, you can ask anyone what they were doing and where they were when the Challenger blew up and the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. You can't do the same if you ask, where were you when the Grand Poobah of the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes was on the legislative floor? A lot of tragic and dumb things happened that day. They were performed by fools who were sold lies. But false equivalencies between those three events are straw men that reinforce the fake news narratives. Reinforcing this narrative is dangerous, and we should be mindful about how our perceptions color our views. Let's step to an example with lower stakes. The winning Super Bowl team coming to the White House. The Patriots, love 'em or hate 'em, won the Super Bowl during multiple presidential administrations. The New York Times ran a story about how fewer Patriots visited the Trump White House than the Obama White House, supported by pictures from each visit. Unfortunately, the 2015 photo had all the supporting staff on the stairs to the sides. In the 2017 photo, the supporting staff were seated on the lawn in front of the podium. This rush to dunk and get loads of hot take retweets reinforces the belief in media bias. By doing this, it is very easy for the MAGA team to say, if they'll lie about football team turnouts at publicity events, what else will they lie about? Be mindful and strive to be better. Listen to your ghosts. Get your 5,000 steps while you walk to get another glass of water so you can stay hydrated. Practice ruthless self-care. Use that standing desk because sitting is the new smoking. Let me know if you need the phone number of the Employee Assistance Program. They are here to listen to you. And thank you for listening to us. We are entirely donation funded and are grateful for each of you who is a patron and each who drops a buck in the tip jar after we hand you a coffee with a smile. The rest of y'all can support us by going to PseudoPod.org and clicking Feed the Pod. Thank you, Alex, for the excellent story, and Danny for the equally excellent narration. If you like this story, please share it on social media, at the water cooler, and with your EAP therapist who is available for 4 free sessions per life challenge. Good thing we have plenty of issues and can keep sessions rolling for years. PseudoPod is a part of Escape Artists Incorporated and is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Theme music is by permission of Anders Manga. PseudoPod knows that challenges are gifts that force us to search for a new center of gravity. Don't fight them. Just find a new way to stand.
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.